Hello there, Alan Plum here again with a little more from Shed Engineering, and I'm afraid it is just a little because we've been rather busy and not managed to get a lot done on the layout. Here I'm just testing the track after cleaning it up, but I'll come to that in a moment. We'll start with the road system and the lack of progress there. And I'm just working on the road system for my N-scale layout, and the idea is supposed to be very simple. I'm using this ball chain which I thought could be threaded through the transit tube all the way round and coming back out of this one, and I was just imagining having a little round winch that the chain could obviously be wrapped around, being pulled in at one side and fed out at the other. On the other shorter transit tube I'm using nylon cord, and again the idea was that it would just wrap around the winch drum and could be turned. But what has actually been happening is that they've been crossing over and thereby getting tangled. So I've been experimenting with several drums, not succeeding or making any progress at all. I then found a little toy tractor tyre. This is off the back wheel. I was using the front wheel, which was a lot smaller, but you can see this obviously, and so I was thinking, oh, that'll be brilliant, that'll sort of grip. Well, obviously the spacings wasn't correct, so I spent hours grinding the rubber down and then covered the outside in hot glue and embedded the chain in the hot glue so that I'd got little imprints in the hot glue of all the little balls all the way around. And I thought, oh, that'll be ideal, that'll make a nice little winding drum. But that didn't work either, because there was actually a fundamental flaw in my thinking. As the chain is pulled in here, I was thinking that it'll just go round and feed out again. But in actual fact, all that happens is that the chain is pulled in. As the drum revolves, it goes down the winch drum and it doesn't get fed out, it just tries moving it down. So then it's coming in lower down and lower down and lower down, and it's being fed out at the lowest point, and so again it just ends up tangling. So even having a spiral on the drum, that didn't work. So I then come up with this little plastic cogwheel, and I thought, oh, that'll be ideal. The teeth will grab hold of the chain and we can just wrap that around and we should be alright. But again, I doubt if you'll be able to see on there, but the spacings were incorrect, and so I've had to grind the wheel down, make it smaller and smaller in diameter until the blue section in there was a blue cogwheel like the green one you've just seen, and I've reduced it in size using a file and my Dremel cutter to recut the teeth so that the spacings are, well, just about in the right position for the ball chain to wrap around. I'm not sure whether it will grip and how I'm going to get tension on it, but I've now got to try and fit that into position so that it's winding the chain in and letting it out. And so that's what I'm just trying to do now. So I've got to cut these off, try and reposition them, and get this little motor unit fixed in position. The idea for going with the ball chain was actually because of these little joiners that you can get. So that's a little piece of silver ball chain fastened onto the red with this little tin connector, and the idea was that I should be able to shorten the chain by one ball at a time, but even that idea fell through because I never actually checked whether the connector would fit down the tube, and as you can see it is just too big. The other problem is, once this groove or slit has been cut into the transit tube, it is very flimsy, and so I've just tried twisting it to get it into a better position. And if you look further up, just here, then the slit is very narrow, and so as you twist it, the slot either moves round to the side rather than being on the very top, or it starts to open up like this. So then you've got to prise it open or squeeze it shut, and obviously that damages this nice clean edge that you want for the transit pin. I was going to use nylon thread like fishing line, but I found this unbreakable black thread in the missus's sewing box. That gives me a chance of actually seeing it, but it proved a little bit difficult in getting the tension on the chain, which meant actually drilling through one of the beads. So I tied it on one end. I then had to drill a hole through one of the beads, which took a while to say the least, but we managed that and got the chain basically fastened together. So with the chain sewn together with cord, we then wrapped the chain around the winding drum, positioned the motor and fixed it in position. I'm just going to put the wires on here. I can't imagine that it's going to work. The way it's approaching the drum, oh, look at that. Looks so promising to start with. Well, half a success. I don't know what... I can't see how I can get much more tension on it, to be honest. It's no good me carrying on winding. That's going to wear the teeth away on the little plastic wheel as it's missing. So I need to try and do something, because that'll just wear them plastic teeth away, and then we'll have less grip. I'll just see what it's like looking at the VW. So we put some packing underneath the motor and raised it up to try and get more tension on the chain. But one of the problems was the L-shaped bracket that the motor is mounted on had got a little bit of bounce, and I think that was giving the intermittent drive. So it wasn't successful at all. So here we've got another little motor, worked absolutely wonderfully, lovely reduction gearing, running ever so slow, but there's a tiny little pinion, and that's all I'd got to fix onto. So using fiberglass resin, I put a mould around it, cast this little bobbin on the end, in the hope that I could make this into a winding drum. Obviously that's the only way I could think of fixing onto this tiny little pinion gear that was sticking out. Got that far. I'd put some greaseproof paper underneath several times to make sure there's nothing around the shaft. Plugged it in afterwards, absolutely dead. So I've no idea what I've done to that. So that's another idea that went out of the window. That's another little motor I had going. That had a large gear wheel on there to get a nice reduction, so that there was a better reduction. And again, that one didn't work. Here's another one with a worm gear to start off with, but that was still running quite fast, so I reduced that down and put a bobbin on just in here, but that didn't work. Again, it was slipping. So now I've simplified it down, got rid of the motor, and I've just got a winding handle, because primarily we need to solve the problem of the winding drum, and we need to get as much friction as possible. So I've increased the diameter of the winding drum, so there should be more surface area. I've changed the chain, so I've got a different type of chain that's sitting flatter on the winding drum, adding to the friction, and I've wrapped the chain round an extra once. So now when you wind it, we've got enough friction, it's not slipping at all, but the problem is exactly the same. If we reposition to just there, it starts to wind, but then the chain starts to move across, and as it moves across, it then goes underneath the other one and again starts to jam. wind it back the other way. The chain tracks across the winding drum, tracks across the winding drum, and again wraps underneath the chain on the other side. And so no matter what I do, wind it the other way, the chain tracks across to the other side of the winding drum and again jams underneath. So I've now got enough friction that new chain is running through the transit tube ever so freely, but still we've got the problem of it jamming underneath. So I'm fast running out of ideas. I could have something like a yacht winch where the surface of the winch is concaved, but surely to goodness the chain would just bunch up in the middle, so I can't see that working. Or I'm faced with a much more complicated option, that's to drop the winding drum altogether and have rollers top and bottom just pulling the chain through, a bit like an old-fashioned mangle. But I could be having to have 2 or 3 sets of rollers to get enough grip on the chain to actually pull it through. So what started out as a interesting and novel idea is fast grinding to a standstill. We're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. I don't know how it's taken that long to explain that. My videos always end up being far too long, but there's been a lot of people following the idea, so I thought it was worth just explaining in detail what I'd actually tried to do. And we'll have to leave the goods yard while next time. As always, thank you very much to all the new subscribers, that's very much appreciated. My apologies again for being so bunged up with this cold and sore throat. And remember, if you want updates, click the little cogwheel at the side of the subscribe banner. I hope you found something of interest, even though it's mostly a total failure. And as always, many thanks for watching.